Welcome to the Immigrant Entrepreneurs Podcast, episode 23. My name is Alina Warwick, and today I'm super excited and honored to bring on Alex Robbio to the show. He came to the United States from Argentina and had just an amazing journey to entrepreneurship. He brought his wife and his young daughter with only $700 in their pockets and had extremely humble beginnings. Although he physically left Argentina, his heart never left his country. He ended up starting a software company with his brother and his father that had offices in several different countries without raising any capital. Alex shares several stories showing his creative immigrant entrepreneurial mind that gets put into action and astonishing results start pouring in. After 17 years of growing the company, he ended up selling the company for over $60 million. This episode is so juicy. You're going to absolutely love it. So let's dive right in. Alrighty, Alex. Hey, thank you so much for joining the Immigrant Entrepreneurs Podcast. I truly appreciate your time, and I'm super excited to hear about your journey. So how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
Let's start from the very beginning. Let's talk about your immigrant journey. Tell us where you're from and when did you come to the States?
Okay, wonderful. Yeah. So I was born in Mendoza, Argentina. That's on the western side of Argentina by the border with Chile. And I met my wife in high school. And now it's going to make sense why I'm mentioning that. So we met very young and we had our daughter very young too. We were both 19 when we had our daughter. And when we moved in 2001 to the US, we were both very young. We were, I think, 24, 25, and we had a 5-year-old daughter with us. So that made it even more interesting.
So you and your wife came with your daughter, and did you guys have any family or friends? How did you guys decide United States?
Yeah, actually, I had visited the United States before. And, when I was in high school, my father was sent as a project manager to the Chicago area. And I really liked it. So I learned English. I attended high school for a semester, and I liked it. I liked it a lot. And even though I had studied psychology in Argentina, I was always into computers, and so I was always, very, I guess, connected to the U.S. through the world of computers and software and so on. And what happened was that my mother-in-law, she's a Mormon, and when she divorced my father-in-law, she moved to Utah because she had, Utah is a place where the Mormon religion is very strong. So she had moved there. She knew some people there, and so we decided. I actually lined up a job at Oracle, which was going to be in Florida. And so we thought we would come by, visit her in Utah, and then we would move to Florida afterwards. So what happened was this is right before September 11th. So we moved to the US in August. And when I was in the process of scheduling my visit to the offices of Oracle in Florida, because it was going to be a job covering the South American market, and so they have an office in Florida.
Oh, okay.
September 11th happened, and they called me and they said, "We're actually firing people, so we're not going to hire anyone. Don't even come." And so we had moved. I had quit my job. The economy was. It was already bad in Argentina, but then after September 11th, it got even worse. And so we were, kind of stuck.
In Utah?
Yeah, we were in. So we ended up, I had no money. We moved. I think we had like $700 when we moved, and I bought a very ugly minivan, and that was it. I had no money, so I couldn't even afford the ticket to go back to Argentina. So we made the best of it. So my wife and I, we got jobs with a friend that had a cleaning franchise, and we helped guy clean a Target. Then my wife, got a job making sandwiches. So we really started from the bottom. It was a great experience, very humbling, and it really gave us a good perspective of the whole cycle of being an immigrant and working hard, and so that's why I have so much respect for all immigrants, because I've gone through it, and I have a lot of friends that have gone through through all of that effort. So
yeah. Yeah. Amazing. Amazing. So you said you were 24, 25 when you moved to the States?
yeah. We were both
Awesome.
super young. Yeah.
So what was it like growing up in Argentina?
Argentina, I guess, in all its weird things, it has certain strengths that I think helped me. One is the education system is very strong. So most of my schooling actually did in public schools, and so that was an asset. The other thing too is that Argentina, the economy has always been very unstable. So when that is a drawback, in reality, it really prepares you both for the life of an immigrant and also for the life of an entrepreneur, because it's very common in Argentina to 1 year be doing great, and then a recession is not like a recession in the US where GDP goes down by 1 or 2%. Recessions in Argentina it goes down by 10, 20%.
Wow.
You've got 1,000% inflation.
Wow.
So that having lived through all of that, and having seen my parents and having seen my dad who was always trying to be an entrepreneur, I think that really prepared both my wife and myself to kind of live the life of an immigrant and entrepreneurs and so on. It gave us certain strength, I would say.
Did you have a big family?
Well, I guess yes. I have an extended family. My immediate family is small, so I have just an older brother. But in Argentina, it's very much like Italians and Spaniards. So you tend to get together with your cousins and second cousins and so on. So my memories growing up was big Christmas dinners and so on.
Was it safe? Was it pretty safe where you were living at in the city or town you were living?
Yeah. No, Argentina, when I was growing up, was super safe. So we had, in that sense, we had a really nice upbringing because we would play outside. I mean, it was a very nice environment. That's changed, unfortunately. There's I guess like everywhere else, but that's changed a little bit. But my upbringing was very, very nice and safe, and would spend a lot of time outside riding bikes and skating outside and so on. So that was very nice.
Let's go back to the struggles that you were talking about when you first immigrated. You said you had $700. You bought a minivan. Tell me a little bit more. Did you have any more struggles when you guys first immigrated?
Well, I guess at that time you probably don't even notice, but looking back, that it's a stressful situation. Just the aspect of getting to know people, and my wife didn't speak the language. I did. I had a very strong accent. I still do, but it was even stronger back then. And so that process of trying to get some work and then working through the hurdles of the immigration process and trying to get a sponsor and all of that was tough. The aspect of before I started my company, I had a job that really was kind of the foundation for me starting the company, and being able to land that first good job was very hard. I remember sending hundreds of resumes and not getting any callbacks. And one of the things, it was interesting because I would work at night at a call center, and then during the day I would just apply for jobs. I made it my main job was to get a job, a good job in something related with computers, which unfortunately, because I didn't have a degree, it was my hobby, so I didn't have a lot of credentials. But anyway, so I started applying, and I wasn't getting any callbacks. And then I realized that maybe I thought I had the hypothesis that maybe my name was a little weird for Utah. My first name is really Alejandro. So I tested the hypothesis, and I changed to Alex Robbio, and both on my email and on my resume. And then all of a sudden I started getting calls. So
that's
way. That's why I go by Alex, because after that, I was like, okay, this is my lucky name. Yeah. And so I started going by Alex. And
well, now that popular song came out, Alejandro, you can probably go back to Alejandro.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, I was very thankful because it was very hard to spell my full name on the phone. And, Lady Gaga really helped me out in that sense.
So did you end up going back to school to get a college education?
Well, actually, I did do, I did attend additional educational programs, but I actually had graduated from my school in Argentina already. So I finished a bachelor's degree in psychology, and then I got some graduate studies in business management before I moved to the US. And then, it was always my dream to attend a great school. And, after I started getting some traction in the business and making a little money, I was able to attend Kellogg School of Business, which, I loved. It was incredible. And then, my partners and myself, we were selected by a nonprofit organization called Endeavor that helps what they call high impact entrepreneurs. And they have partnerships with Stanford, with Harvard. And so I was able to really make my dream come true and attend both Stanford and Harvard through that program. So I'm very lucky in that sense.
That's amazing. So Alex, before you tell our listeners about your company, tell me a little bit about the path you took. So I know you mentioned you were working at a call center, and then during the day you were filling out a bunch of resumes. And then what happened?
So I started getting a little bit of traction, started getting some interviews, and I started polishing my pitch. And then I got lucky, and I was interviewed I got lucky twice because I went to a recruiter. He was actually sick for the day. And so I was very nice to him, and he was super apologetic. And then, I sent him a get well card, and he appreciated that. So he interviewed me. Because I didn't have a degree in computer science, he made me take a lot of tests on different, proficiency in software development, computers and so on. So I took a bunch of tests at this recruitment company. And I guess he liked me and said, you know what, I'm going to help you get your job. And so he started calling around, and I guess he found a person that had served the Mormon mission in Argentina. And he said, what the heck, I'd like to meet a guy from Argentina. So I met this VP of software engineering at a small company. We really hit it off. He had lived in Argentina. So, I guess he hired me to practice his Spanish, I would say. He hired me at a, very low salary. I was willing to take whatever they were willing to pay just so they would sponsor my green card. And they did. They were great in that sense. But very early, I realized that there was a significant opportunity. So we were getting a lot of projects, and we just could not find enough people to get the projects done. And so, I convinced the owner of the company. I said, you know what? I actually have a small company with my father and my brother in Argentina. What if we helped you? What if we helped our company from that company in Argentina? We could provide, software development and quality assurance services at a great cost and, with great talent. And so at first, it didn't believe me that I could actually get really good people from Latin America. So I convinced them to fly down, with me. And we had to really stage it. There was really no real company. I mean, we had we had done some business with my father and my brother, but it was, something very small. So we had to borrow, plans to decorate the office. I actually invited friends so they would be in the office and show a little bit more people.
I love it.
Yeah, and I knew a lot of people in the software industry in Mendoza, so I made sure that there were a lot of talented people when they visited, and they were blown away by the level of people that we were able to attract. And so that became our first client. And so I was on one side working in this company and, kind of waiting to get my green card. On the other hand, I was, helping my startup and working remotely and making sure that things went well. And in the meantime, my brother and my father, were working from Argentina. So that's how we got started. And we were able to bootstrap because we had a first client, very low cost, and we reinvested everything. We didn't, pay ourselves a salary for many years, and we were super low cost. My father and my brother, they were building the desks from from pieces of wood, and yeah. So anyways, that's how we made it happen.
Okay, so the very first company that the guy hired you, what was the company called?
It was Brookline Technologies. It doesn't exist anymore, unfortunately. But yeah,
okay.
great little company. It's full of great opportunities for me. We were really figuring things out. Typical startup, it's like everyone tries to do everything. And so it's a great opportunity to, to step up. And, I was eager, hungry, literally, I guess.
Yeah.
And so I was hired as a junior developer. And a year later, I was a VP of program manager. And a year thereafter, I was the CEO of the company. So it was a great story.
So it was also a software company, right?
Yeah, it was a software company. Yep.
Okay. And then on the other hand, in Argentina, you also had a startup with your brother and your father. That's also a software company.
Not really. We had a startup, but we were trying to figure out what we were going to do. So we had, 10 different things that we were doing. Like we were doing some industrial automation, some consulting, some, radars now we were trying to find something to do. I wouldn't even call it like a real company. It was more like we were together trying to figure out what we could do.
Got it. And the solution that you guys brought to that company in the States was what again?
Well, the solution was really in that initial engagement was really access to talent. There was really the need to grow the product, prove the product, test it, make it better, handle implementations for new clients. And we had amazing developers, amazing software testers, engineers, architects. And that's what we did. So initially we were just like augmenting their team. But then as we became better at it, we ended up becoming like full owners of products. Like they would just give us an idea and we would take that idea and end up, making a product out of it. So we got better and better at it. And then, through word of mouth and very basic outreach, we landed a second client in Utah. That was, another software company. They liked us a lot, so they really grew with us. And then we landed a very nice company out of Boston, Massachusetts, that was growing very fast. They were also desperate. They were super demanding, and they really helped us improve our game very significantly. They had the most important product in chemical design, and so they were really a world-class company. And so we really had to step up our game and learn a lot. And so that was very challenging. They were very tough times, but because we were growing super fast, growing at 80% a year, adding a lot of people, we were trying to figure out, how do you recruit, how do you retain, how do you develop great people? In the meantime, also, how do you create a company, a culture? We had no funding. We're not really familiar with the world of venture capital. We should have raised money, we just didn't know. And so we really struggled. I mean, it was a very painful process because we were trying to scale up at a very fast pace and didn't have a lot of resources. So, but in the end, it really paid off because we kept the whole ownership of the company. So that in that sense, it was a good thing. But also, if we had raised some money, I think that could have helped us get even bigger, or maybe even learn, from your venture capitalists. They help you, they steer you, and so on. So maybe it would have taken us less time, but I think we were able to do it anyways.
Got it. Well, what a journey. Thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah. Okay. So your startup, is that the Bellatrix software?
Yeah, so that's a company. We started Bellatrix Software, and we started in Mendoza because that's where we were. And we quickly realized that was not going to be enough for us, in the sense that even though we were investing very heavily in training people, in bringing students, in providing great internships and training programs, very early on, we established like an industry leading practice where we offer over 120 hours of corporate paid training per year per employee. And that's a lot. That's really, the companies that invest the most in training, they provide maybe 40 hours a year. And so we were at 120. But even with that, we were growing so fast that we couldn't find enough people. So we we tried to go to China. So I participated in an event in China. I liked it. We created a joint venture. My father moved to China for a little bit to get it started, but we couldn't make it work. It was, the time difference was very significant, it was so hard. Mm-hmm. There were also some cultural aspects that made it a little bit challenging. Some of our clients were very concerned about intellectual property protection. So after a year and a half, we shut that down, but we realized that we still needed to scale up. So we took what we had learned and applied it in going into another country. But this time we went a little closer to. So after we looked at many different countries, we ended up selecting Peru. And that was a great decision. So Peru had a lot of potential and it was really untapped at that time. And so we came in very early and were able to establish great relationships with universities, really become the employer of choice for all students. Wow. And we were able to scale that up very well. So China was in 2008. Peru, we started in 2010. We opened in 2011. Very quickly, that became a significant part of our operation. And then about 3 years ago, we also opened in Colombia, in Bogota, Colombia. And before that, I apologize, I missed the fact that we also bought a small company in Buenos Aires. And so we also started a company, an operation in Buenos Aires. So all in all, when we sold the company, which is something we should have mentioned before. So we exited, I'm still involved, but we exited the ownership last year. We sold the company to one of our competitors after a very interesting process last year. So when we sold the company, we were about 700 people spread out in through all these offices in Latin America, offices in New York, California, and also in Florida.
Wow, that's amazing. Good job.
I get tired of talking about it again.
No. This is awesome. So why did you decide to sell the company?
What happened was that we started realizing that they was starting to become a very interesting space for international companies. And so we started seeing a lot of the companies that were of our same size or smaller, they started getting acquired. So the competitive pressures were very high. Mm-hmm. So, it's hard to be caught in the mid-market. Mm-hmm. We had a good size, but our competitors were 10, 20 times bigger than we were. So, like the Globant, for example, the company that acquired us, they are, 14,000 people. So it's, even though you can't competing with them effectively, we started getting concerned that, that we were very exposed and it was getting harder for us to access the, top deals, large deals. And we did not want to be like a boutique or just a mid-market company. We also had a lot of people in our management team that were asking for more challenges and bigger opportunities. And even though we were growing fast, we had been growing at a compounded annual growth of 35% for the last 5 years. We had lost some talented people because, they were ready to do something bigger. So that, and also, my father, he was turning 70. And so, we were going to have to figure that out, and so it just seemed like a good time. Mm-hmm. The valuations were very high. We had been able to grow a family business together in an atypical way. Usually family businesses are started by the father or mother, and then they're passed on to the next generation. Mm-hmm. In our case, it's like we were all first generation entrepreneurs, even though we were a family. And so it just felt like the right time. And we don't regret it. We had, we distributed a lot of money amongst our management team. So a lot of people made good money. We made really good money as well. Do we miss the challenge of running the company? Yes, we do. That let's be honest. Once you're an entrepreneur, it's selling the company. Yes, I guess it's nice in the sense that you see the value represented in an amount, and that's nice because all the effort you put in materializes, and so that's nice. But at the same time, the fun, the challenge, the excitement of working with your team, people you trust, people you really end up loving. Yeah, we miss that part a little bit. So, but we can always do it again.
Yes, yes. So how old were you when you started Bellatrix?
Well, I would have been 26, 25, 26.
So what are you up to now, Alex?
Well, what I'm doing now is I've been helping the company that acquired us, Globant. Been helping them establish a digital marketing practice. We got really good digital marketing at Bellatrix because because we didn't have a lot of money. We had to learn how to do marketing and selling in a cost-effective way. And so I've been helping Globant get all of those lessons that we've learned and apply them at scale. So, make those practices really enterprise class. And that's been a lot of fun. So we've been integrating our marketing teams and doing that. So that's what I've been doing. Moving forward, I really enjoy mentoring other entrepreneurs. I work with this nonprofit that I mentioned, which, by the way, I would recommend any entrepreneur to check them out. They used to be outside of the US only, but they're a US foundation that had most of their operations outside of the US, but now they have operations in many states in the US. I would highly recommend that it's endeavor.org. And so
What
I'm
is it
working
called?
with Endeavor.
Endeavor.
And the website is endeavor.org.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
And I volunteer my time as a mentor and as an advisor, helping other entrepreneurs, hopefully save them some time and headaches as they go through the journey. And also, I'm investing. I've joined a small venture capital firm that invests in early stage companies. Okay. And I myself, I'm also an angel investor as well. So it's fun. There's this saying, from founder to funder. So that's yes. I'm kind of exploring that new role. I'm learning.
Awesome. Yeah. And how long did you run Bellatrix software for before you sold it?
Well, this incarnation, because like I said, we have been doing some different types of business before, but the software incarnation, we started it in 2002, so all the way through 2019.
17 years.
17 years. Yep.
17 years. And I love when the founders or when the funders were also founders, because I feel that entrepreneurs can really relate to those people, because the funders that have never had experience in a startup or an entrepreneur, I feel like they're lacking the expertise. But so that's awesome. That's awesome. I love it. So Alex, where do you think you got your entrepreneurial drive from?
That's interesting. I would say there's two aspects here. One is, my own drive, but also I have to give a lot of credit to my wife. She's very entrepreneurial and super supportive and patient. Being the spouse of an entrepreneur takes a lot of guts, and it's not always easy. And luckily for me, her father had also been an entrepreneur. So she had kind of, that was her life as well. So he had started in many business before, gone bankrupt a few times, had a lot of success at other times. So she had lived through that. Myself, it's interesting. My grandpa on my dad's side, he had a small bike shop on the side. And then when he retired, he kept running it until he was so old that he couldn't more. But so I kind of grew up, sitting with him, running the shop, and that was always a lot of fun. And then my father, even though he worked at a large company, most of the time he also would quit, go start something, and then if it didn't work, he would go back. I guess he was a great employee there, so they would take him back. So he tried a few times, and also he supported us as well. My mom supported us as well. My brother and I, when we found out that we were going to be moving to the US for that year I mentioned in high school, we wanted to save up money so we would be able to buy things in the US. And so we started a small operation where we were buying computer parts in Buenos Aires, the capital of Argentina, and then we would assemble computers and sell them in Mendoza. So we would place classified ads in the newspaper and sell computers. And we, believe it or not, we were, I was 15, he was 16. I always looked a little older, but maybe I looked like I was 17 or 18. But so we were both very young, and we didn't even have the computers.
Wow.
And we were asked to give us a 50% up front so we could buy the parts and make the computers. And we learned how to convince people, how to be, and seem trustworthy so that people would hand out 50% of their cash so we could buy their parts and build their computers, and a week later deliver their computers. So I guess we always had something going on. Now that I look back, I didn't think that I was learning how to be an entrepreneur, but I think it did help, that aspect of, okay, how do you price it? How do you sell? How do you convince someone? The importance of honesty and coming through on your promises, all those things, I think you really pick up when you're exposed to, to business or to running a business one way or another, whatever business it is. I mean, whether it's a, shoe store or a computer parts store or any kind of business, I think it gives you that experience that applies even at a larger scale afterwards.
Yeah. And then also you said in Argentina, a lot of people were already entrepreneurs, right? It was like the theme to be an entrepreneur.
It's interesting because, yes, one thing that Argentina has is that because we have a good free public school system and higher education system, there's a lot of people that graduate from universities that can't get a job afterwards. And so they start their own consulting, or they're freelancing, or they start building something. So yeah, you get pretty exposed to that, and it's interesting because that is the reason why Endeavor, even though it was started in New York, their first entrepreneurs were actually selected in Argentina. So I guess they saw a lot of promise in Argentina in that sense.
Yeah, I love it. So you mentioned that you guys did not raise any capital in the beginning stages, but did you have to raise any capital going forward as the company grew?
Well, yes, we should, but we couldn't, and we didn't. We were really always in need of capital, but what happens is that because we, when you have a business like ours, it's very hard to raise capital normally, like, go and get bank loans, for example, because we had no collateral. The only collateral we had were computers. That's it. Those depreciate very quickly. So they depreciate in 1 year, and so they're gone. Actually, we didn't even have computers. I forgot to tell you, the first 5-10 developers that we hire, we asked them to bring their own computer to the office because we didn't have a computer for them. and remember,
wow.
This is before laptops. So people were bringing their desktops to our handmade desks. So
wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, so we couldn't raise money in the sense of, going and getting a bank loan. Banks, because, the economy in Argentina is so unstable, they're very risk averse. So the idea of funding a service company with no collateral doesn't cross their mind. And I think also in all honesty, I think it was a little bit of ignorance too, because we could have raised capital through venture capital, but what happened was that we were in this small province where venture capital, was not, and it's still not very common. It's a little more common in Buenos Aires, but we didn't have the network, neither in Argentina nor in the US. We really didn't realize it was an option until very late, until we didn't need it. When we were in the process of selling the company, we said, let's go and explore whether Plan A could be sell the company. Plan B could be just raise, capital and grow even faster. And so we did start talking to venture capital firms, and we got a very positive response because we didn't need them, and that's the best position to be in. So, any money we could have taken would have just been to, reaccelerate something that was already working and very profitable and healthy.
Got it. Okay. Alex, so I'm really interested to know, did you have any mentors that helped you out in the beginning stages of your business?
At all stages. Yeah. Mentors are so important. I think that's something that entrepreneurs, I think we have to have the humility to seek out and engage and keep mentors. It's made a big difference. And yeah, I've had mentors throughout the process. the last, I would say 5-6 years, I've been working super closely with a mentor from the US. His name is Alok Mohan. He used to run, SEO, Santa Cruz operations, the company that brought Unix to PCs before Linux existed.
Wow.
He had been the CEO of that company. He had been like number 6 or number 9 at NCR before they sold it to AT&T. And this is what he does. He just helps entrepreneurs and works with them, and we've become really close friends. And he's an inspiration. And I'm trying to do the same that he did for me, for other entrepreneurs, because it made a big difference. It was not only in terms of, bringing business practices, but also having someone that you can, someone that is unbiased and can give you honest feedback and tell you when you're wrong and give you a different perspective, someone that you can sometimes, even fight a little bit and contemplate different options and so on. That, mentors and advisors are, I think it's something that is critical for the success of entrepreneurs, especially like if you go the normal Silicon Valley way, you get all of that because your investors, they have a vested interest, so they act as advisors and they're going to mentor you and so on. But that's like 1% of companies. Most entrepreneurs don't go through that process, and so I think it's very important that we all, there's always someone that knows more than we do, and so seeking that expertise out and engaging them and compensate them as well when you can, I think it's super important.
Thank you so much for sharing that. So looking back at your immigrant entrepreneur career and knowing what you know now, would you want to change anything or do anything differently besides the fact raising capital in the beginning?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think, looking back, I think we could have taken more risks if we had some funding. Like if I look at the first 6-7 years of our operation, it really took us a long time to get real traction and really take the business seriously and realize that we were building value and so on. So yes, I think in our sense, and I wouldn't say it's the same for all business and for all entrepreneurs, but in our case, I think, we should have raised some capital. The other thing that we should have done maybe a little earlier too is adding someone with the sole focus of finance made a big difference. My brother, he's a super talented guy, and he had some background in finance, but he was doing 20 other things. Yeah. And so we didn't have a formal CFO until very late in the game, and that made a big difference. The quality of the financial reporting that we were getting and so on, that made a big difference. So that's something that I probably would have done a little earlier. I think entrepreneurs should not settle for just accounting. The information you can get from good financial reporting can make a huge difference in your planning, in your ability to take risks and so on. So that's something I probably would have done a little earlier.
So I'm really interested to know, what do you think most prepared you to become an entrepreneur? Is there anything that you can look back and say specifically that something prepared you in any way?
It's always, I guess there's so many factors, like at first, for example, the decision of, I was a computer geek growing up. I was always into computers. I went into the computer Olympic games and so on. And then I decided to study psychology. At first, that seemed like a bad decision, right? If you want to be an entrepreneur or anything. But there were so many things that I picked up in studying psychology that were helpful afterwards. Whether it was, how do you motivate people? How do you stay motivated? How do you control your anxiety? How do you talk to yourself? How do you have a good dialogue with yourself? So those things, they're very soft, but I think they helped. They really, really helped. And I think it's not easy to pick that up only through experience. And I think the other aspect is there's not much you can do about that, but I think your parents have a significant impact. And I think I guess there's a couple of things that I've noticed. I've noticed that entrepreneurs that have had really poor parents, poor in the sense of bad parenting, sometimes that motivates them to prove them wrong, like, parents that don't appreciate you and so on. But in my case, my parents were super supportive. They always made me feel like I could do anything I wanted, that I could achieve anything I put my mind into. So I think that's, getting that confidence in yourself and so on, that makes a huge difference. Nothing I could do about it, but I mean, except try to pass it on to my kids. But I think that had a big influence.
It's them to be connecting the dots and to be looking back and seeing, okay, that has helped me tremendously. Parents has helped me tremendously. And now you can value those things. And like you said, like some people don't have that, or some people have poor parents as in materialistic ways, and they can't really motivate kids. So it's really, really valuable to point that out. And so we can also learn to pass it on to our kids. So that's awesome. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I'm really interested to know, how do you look at failures and how do you overcome them?
I look at them as too many to remember them all. There's so many, the process of scaling up a company, you make so many mistakes. And at first you take it so personal. Like I remember, when we would lose someone we valued, I would take it so personal. Like I wouldn't sleep for days, I would be so frustrated and angry with myself and so on. So I didn't take it in a very healthy manner at first, but then you learn. Then you learn that to learn, you have to go through those experiences. And so I don't think you ever not take them a little bit personal, because you love what you're doing and so you bring your heart into it. You learn to manage that a little better. So I always try to remember and remind myself that that's how you learn. So I've made a lot of mistakes, and I'm going to continue making mistakes. Yeah. But I always try to not beat myself up. And in my self-dialogue, when I find myself beating myself up, I try to convince myself that that's, hey, just learn from it. Don't, try not to make the same mistake and move on. You're human. You're doing your best. Just to learn from it.
And it's good to talk about this, because a lot of immigrants listening to this can see a lot of successful immigrant entrepreneurs, and they don't see the failures. They don't see the mistakes. They only see the successes. So it's really good to point out, like, hey, we've had so many failures.
Yeah.
Just keep on going.
Alina, you bring up a great point. And, I actually wrote an article on that it said entrepreneurs should not measure themselves against the Mark Zuckerbergs of the world, because those are really outliers. And so there's, if you look at it, those are like once in a decade or a couple in a decade cases. That's very likely not going to be your story, but that doesn't mean that you're not going to succeed. That doesn't mean that you're not going to make other people succeed. Like if, looking at my own journey, yes, I'm glad and I'm happy and I'm proud that I've made, in the end, I made good money, but I'm most proud of all the people that we, impacted in a positive way. There's thousands of people that have attended our trainings. In fact, we open up our training program to people that were not working for the company so that we could share our knowledge. Every time we brought a trainer from the US to Argentina or Colombia or Peru, we would make sure that there would be one class that would be open to people outside of the company. And so, that impact was it's something that I'm most proud about. But again, so that if I measure myself against Mark Zuckerberg, I'm a failure.
Yeah.
But when you look at all that impact and so on, I think it doesn't feel like fame. So I think we have to be, aspire to be like the Mark Zuckerbergs or the Bill Gates, but also know that their story is a very particular one. Your story is going to be a little bit probably more like mine, and you're going to fall down and you're going to have setbacks, and it's going to take a long time. It's not going to take 3 years to $1 billion. It's probably never going to get there, but that doesn't mean that you're failing. Not being a unicorn, it's not a failure. It's not a failure. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Such powerful and valuable advice. Thank you. So let's switch gears and talk about successes on the positive note on being an entrepreneur. So, are there any successes that you would like to outline from your immigrant entrepreneur journey? And I know you've mentioned so many already.
Well, I think this aspect of being able to, talking about the unlikely story. I remember when we first started, and I was telling one of our first managers, "Hey, you know what? We have to get ready for when we're 100 people." And she said, "Mendoza, there's never been a software company that gets to that size, and it's never going to happen." And by
And
the
how
time
many
we
people
sold,
did you guys? How many people
well,
did you
in
guys have at that
Mendoza,
time?
we ended up, in Mendoza, we had about 220, and in Peru, we had like 300, and then, more than 100 in Colombia. So overall, we had about 700 people when we sold the company.
So I'm sorry to interrupt. So when you said that, be prepared to when we're going to be 100 people. How many did you guys have in Mendoza?
Oh, we were just getting started. We were like 5.
Oh, got it.
It seemed very
Yes.
unlikely. And there had never been a company in Mendoza that had been more than like 50 people, in technology. So it seemed like a pipe dream. And, so the fact that my team, my partners and I were able to build something from a very unlikely place, in the middle of Argentina, in the middle of a place that's it's only known for the wine. And we had a global projection. We were able to work with some of the best companies in the world, from Disney to, Price Waterhouse to, that's a really a huge point of pride. The other one is again, having to do with people, is we had people in our management team that came from the internship program that we were running. So we had people that joined Betatrix without being able to speak a word of English. And years later, they were working side by side with people from, some of the world's most recognized brands, going to the US, visiting them, and then running the company with us. So that being able to go through all that journey together with our people, that's been amazing. Just that part that really feels really, really good, because you think, those people were really smart and probably would have found other opportunities, but we gave them that opportunity. They took it. They worked hard to earn it, and it was probably life changing. So that's a huge point of pride.
You're transforming the software industry through touching all these people. So that's amazing. That's awesome. So, Alex, what are some things that you would advise the next aspiring immigrant that wants to start their own business listening to you right now?
I think one of the biggest challenges that I've seen we immigrants face is that I think sometimes we don't believe it ourselves. And it's very easy nowadays with all this narrative, sometimes it gets even racist and all of this anti-immigrant movement. Don't get caught up in it. Don't let all of that affect your dreams and your aspirations. I think, just focus on what you're doing, continue working hard, have a goal and work towards it. Don't get distracted by all of that. I'm hoping that's going to soon go away, but it is a challenging time, but don't let that be something that doesn't let you achieve your aspirations and your potential.
So powerful. Thank you. Thank you so much. So to wrap up, I have a couple of questions for you. Super, super fast and easy, if you're okay with that.
Sure.
Okay. What time do you normally start your day?
Well, now I'm taking the call from Barcelona, Spain. So it's been very weird because I wake up at about 7 a.m. to get, help my son get school on time and so on. But then I relax a little bit in the morning. I do my reading and so on. And then my afternoons are crazy because that's when activity starts in Latin America, in the US, and so on. So I work really hard from like 2 p.m. my time all the way through like 8 or 9 p.m. But that's all healthy. I wouldn't recommend that.
So how often do you watch TV in a week?
Oh, I don't watch TV that often. Maybe a few minutes a day, a little bit of news. I like reading more.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And then how many hours of work do you normally put in?
That varies a lot, really, especially now. Like when we were in growth mode and the last couple of years, I would say on average it was anywhere from 45 to 55. Maybe if you ask my wife, she would say more because I was probably working in my mind more hours that I was just sitting in front of my desk. Now it's very fluid. Like there are weeks that get a little crazy. There are weeks that it's a lot more relaxed. It's a lot more fluid now. But I mean, in a different role.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. And then I was going to ask, how many employees do you have? But did you say you had 700 employees when you sold the company?
Sold the company. Correct.
Got it. Got it. And then is it okay to ask you how much you sold the company for, or is that not okay?
That's it's public knowledge. It more than $60 million.
More than $60 million. Wow. Yeah. Amazing. Awesome. Well, Alex, thank you so much for coming onto the Immigrant Entrepreneurs podcast. I really appreciate this talk. You are a true inspiration to all the immigrants listening, and I wish you all the best of successes your way. And thank you for inspiring all the people that went through your internship programs and your mentorship programs. Thank you for transpiring the world in what you do. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a great pleasure. Thanks.
Thank you. Alrighty, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. I just wanted to ask if you can give me a quick shout out wherever you're at listening to this podcast. And I'd love to give you a shout out as well on a future episode of mine. I'll see you guys all next time for another exciting and impactful episode. Take care.